I'm ready.
Three items that come to mind when I know you as a keynote speaker. It's leadership, culture, and well-being. Talk to us about your relationship to that and what you feel is most important to impart from the stage.
Yeah, well, I love that you bring those 3 up because when anybody says, like, "What category do you fit in? I wanna put you somewhere." I always say, like, my entire life, I blurred the boxes. I've never, ever fit neatly in one box. So, leadership and culture and well-being, if you can imagine the intersection of those 3 things, that's where I live because I don't believe that those 3 things live separate from each other. I think if we start to pull them apart or they've lived apart for a very long time, that's when we get into trouble. That's when we get burned out. That's when our leadership is maybe not coming from a place where it's inside out. Our culture is being shaped more by external forces than with our humanity, our well-being, and our soul. So that's how I think about like those three things kind of beautifully intertwined. So I
Yeah,
fit in the middle and frankly refuse, as any good rebel does, to be put in one of those boxes.
right.
Um, and yeah, I think you teed it up beautifully. What I impart from the stage is this idea that we can redefine success. I love this idea that, successful is really defining success on our own terms and in a way that makes us feel more alive and more energized and more fulfilled from the inside out. So that ultimately we can have impact in the world and not on our well-being. That's it.
You mentioned burnout, and I don't know what the statistic is. I'll just say an overwhelming majority of employees experience burnout. People define it differently. Just today, we had a newsletter that we published. Check it out on LinkedIn, subscribers and fans out there, about burnout and how it's a slow creep. It doesn't happen suddenly. Talk to us a little bit about how you relate to burnout, how you like to impart some wisdom around that.
Yeah, and I will give you a statistic. So in my current keynote, probably my signature keynote, which is I quit so you don't have to, is I talk about a statistic from Mercer. So Mercer does a global talent report every year, and last year, so in this case 2024, they predicted that 82% of all employees are at risk of burning out. Which to me, it's like just, I always think of that like the emoji I use frequently, like the head exploding emoji. I'm like,
Right.
that's insane. That's
Yeah.
8 in 10 of every single one of us. And whatever communities and companies and cultures you're a part of. And in my mind, that's not okay. And it's very personal to me. So to answer the second part of your question, it's really personal because my story of having this rocket ship of a 26-year corporate career in advertising and marketing and finding myself at the top of a particular mountain as chief marketing officer of Harley-Davidson, which I think most people would argue it's one of the sexiest jobs, if not the sexiest job in marketing. And looking like this total badass from the outside and feeling like a hollow shell of myself inside. I was absolutely exhausted. I felt empty and I felt really alone because I was like, wait a second. I was taught to tick all of these boxes and do all of these things. And I was handed a script that I followed to a T. For a rebel. That's a challenging thing. And then to find myself in this place, I'm like, is this all there is? And why isn't anybody talking about this? So everything you said, and I do subscribe and I did read your newsletter. That's very personal to me, having experienced it. And now on the other side of it, knowing that there is a different way forward, that we can create success both for ourselves, for our teams, for our organizations, that doesn't have that same impact on our well-being or doesn't need to at the very least. So what you're hitting on is like, I mean, that is my heart and soul in the nutshell.
You strike me as somebody who's on the very other side of the pendulum that swung from empty and soulless to having this spark of life. I mean, you can just hear it in your excitement in your voice.
Yeah.
And that only comes from truly living it. And it's a lot of work to get to the other side.